Alright, developer log for August 2024. This is going to be another one with terrible audio quality because my Rode microphone still doesn't work. So yeah. So the main things I've done this month is two major reworks. So one rework to the voice and audio system and one rework to the inventory system. Both now rely on the same type of code. I talked about it that I had to change some stuff about the inventory. So inventory systems are no longer... So in order to keep track of certain inventory items such as grenades and ammo, I no longer put everything in the pawn class. So it used to be that everything was like in the pawn class. I might still have some leftover codes. No. But yeah, I used to just have all of the inventory items in here. And every time when I wanted to have a new inventory item, I had to add a variable and it just was terrible. So I now have this, so I can neatly go from here to here. The USK player inventory component. So this inventory component allows me to dynamically add inventory items based on a string ID. So when I am setting something, I can say it has this ID with a string name. It uses fname, which is a more efficient string in Unreal. And TSG, this is a template. Yeah, yes, templates are actually useful for the people who like get like mad at C++ stuff. Like, who uses templates? How will I ever practically use that? Believe me, if you do proper programming, you will eventually run into use cases for templates. I've already used templates many times in the code. And this is another one of them. So I have a template for adding a specific value. So this could be like an integer or something. So it will... so if the item does not exist, so if it tries to add something to the inventory and it has not yet exist, it will create a new inventory entry and it will add an edit to that. If it already exists, it will just find it and it will set it. So basically. Same goes for getting. So if you want to get something, even if it doesn't exist, it will like make an item and it will just give you an empty array or an empty number. If it's an integer, it will just give you a 0. So it will automatically make it. Yes, I could put this in a function and then have like call the function, but I usually go by the rule. It's like if I have to repeat something 3 times, that's when I say that, but here I have it 3 times. Oh, this is for get pointer, yeah. So I eventually also added a ability to just get the pointer of the variable instead of getting a copy. So if you do this, you get a copy, and if you do this, you get the pointer. So because for ammo, I really need to always get the pointer because there are a lot of like... It's actually too difficult. If I explain it, you don't understand what I'm talking about. So yeah, costed items. So these are basically USK inventory objects. These are the entries. They will have an ID. So the inventory ID. This is an empty one because this is just the base class. And then if I go to... Too much shit. Oh, I shouldn't swear because YouTube hates me for that. We're already past the first few minutes. I think we're fine. Alright. Okay. I have to now also just use the search function here. Then I do hope it does. Okay. There we go. So yeah, I have an integer here. So here's an integer object. So if I try and make an integer, if I try to add an integer to the inventory, it will make an inventory object. And that will just have here your int amount. Very simple. So I have 3 things. I have int bool, which keeps track of a boolean. I use that for key cards. And then I also have a specific inventory object for weapons, which holds the weapon struct. Now, there's one really nice thing about the inventory system as well, is that I can now just manage the save data from the inventory objects instead of having to do this from the pawn class. So if I go to the private, especially the weapon, I can now just handle all of this in the inventory system, so I don't have to add any more code to the pawn class. And the pawn, I've already said multiple times, the pawn class is really big, and I need to move code away from the pawn class to other sub-objects, and this is like one of the examples, like moving stuff to an inventory sub-object and handle the code there. The code has been like I've been able to remove like 10 or so, 12 or so functions from the like interface functions from the pawn class, which is great because every function I can get rid of the pawn class and it just can get handled by its own separate entity. Is just fantastic. So yeah, if I can see let's go and showcase it. So the way it works, so I can probably find the grenade somewhere. So here I have throw grenade funk. I shouldn't put funk behind. Such stupid. I shouldn't put funk behind stuff because it's already a function. It's like when you name something blah 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 float or blah 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 integer. Like you don't have to do that. You can just hover over it and see that's an integer. But yeah, throw grenade funk. Here we have a special dev function. Throw grenade funk. Here we have inventory get. So here I have a so I get the correct integer with the correct object for the interface for the template. So inventory gets, it will then remove a grenade and it will set it again. So this gets a copy. So because it gets a copy, it doesn't change it when I change it here. So I also have to set it again. So here I have inventory set, and it then goes exactly to this template, and it will then set the variable with the correct ID. And that's basically the inventory system, and I can now add anything I want. I mean, not anything I want. Currently I only have booleans, integers, and specific weapon structs, but very good for future expansion. I now have a fully functioning inventory system. Now, obviously, I don't have like a GUI to make an actual inventory system as for like a RPG or something, but hey, the foundation is there. I have inventory now. Yeah, now this is technically less efficient than the old method because I now have to always look for an ID, but I try and just minimize the amount of times that it gets called. And honestly, the processor runs at 5 gigahertz. It doesn't matter. The amount of time that it saves me for programming is worth the absolutely tiny performance hit on like having to look up a table of string entries. It's not a big deal. There's this guy. I'm just gonna go on a tangent. Fuck it. Like I don't care anymore. There's this guy who really hates C++ on. If you look up any programming stuff, you will find him. You know who he is. He's a fucking moron. But yeah, he made like a video showcasing how worse between brackets C++ is through C, and then he basically shows virtual functions and how it's basically like 10 times slow. Not 10 times, like I think 5 or 10 times slower than like just a straight up C call, a C function call. But the thing is, that C function call is already, you're talking about the difference between 1 clock cycle and 5 clock cycles. Probably, usually even less because you get like multiple executions per clock cycle. It actually doesn't matter. We have 5 gigahertz to work with. It doesn't matter. Like if you're gonna make your life absolute hell by making everything straight C, the amount of time and the amount of resources you're losing by not having the flexibility of C++ vastly outpaces the performance. I mean, yeah, like C++ games can run. There are so many C++ games on the market that can run easily at 300 frames per second. Easily. Like a very good example of a very goodly optimized game is it was the Mad Max game that came out like years ago now. That game ran beautifully, like 100 plus FPS on even low-end systems. That game ran amazing. It was made in C++ because C++ is not a bad programming language. Unlike the reason why people hate C++, by the way, because they don't understand it. Like it's literally that simple. They don't understand it. They hate it. Period. It's an emotional response. There's no logic behind it. It frustrates I mean, this is me and my emotional reaction. It kind of frustrates me that C++ is the only Wikipedia page of all programming languages that has a freaking negatives or criticism. Yeah, a criticism section. Like, can we get a criticism for Python? Look, I love Python. I don't love Python actually. But Python is fine. Python is fine, but I really want a criticism. You know the reason why so many fucking programs run slow as fuck on your PC? You know why? Because they're written in Python. That's why. The reason why this program that you downloaded is so unbelievably slow is because it's written in Python. Too many people, Python is great, but people are using it for the wrong things. People are making entire big ass programs with it, and it just does not work. I have the same issue with work, by the way. Like all of the programs we have at work, they're all written in Python. They all run at 20. They all run at a 20 update rate at like the best. If they're busy, their update rate, like, we're not talking FPS here. We're just talking about the update rate of the system. It's just going to go down to like 5. It's very slow, very non-responsive most of the time because it's written in Python. Python is slow as hell. No matter how many of these. Then you have that shit where you have these people. They say like, oh look, Python can beat C++. And then they show like Python calling a C++ library, and it's like, are you actually stupid, or is this just bad? Is this just bad faith argumentation? I hope it's bad faith argumentation, and I'm not really serious with it yet. Again, I don't care anymore about these devlogs. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, I did the same thing for. What? I don't know. Audio. So very quickly, I don't need the engine. Pawn audio interface uses the exact same system, so I'm not gonna go into it. Pawn audio, instead of having a big list of like every single different type of audio call, like pain calls, you have to make movement calls, noise calls, spot calls, hertz, depth sounds, stunt sounds. We now just have a dynamic list that you can access, and if I want to have something special, like let's say I want a special voice line that's placed at a specific time, I don't have to make it a special entry for it in the Pawn audio collection. I can just add it dynamically into the list of audio structs and then call that later. I'm not gonna showcase it, but it's simpler, it's easier. So yeah, that's that. So what else do we have left? So we ranted about C++ now in favor of C++, and we talked about the big changes. I'm also working on the levels, which I usually don't show. I always don't show. So yeah, that's the end of that. Unfortunately, my time is gonna be a bit limited again because I am now doing. So I said that I was really busy getting my car driver's license like earlier this year. I've decided to ride motorcycle because I find motorcycles I've really fallen in love with motorcycles. With car driving lessons, it was like I just kind of didn't like going to car driving lessons. It was like, oh, I have to do it. I still don't have a car because I can just cycle to work. But it's quite far. Again, I don't like cars, but I really like motorcycles now. So I'm gonna be a bit distracted with that as well. So development is going to be just a bit further, but you know what, at this point. It is continuing. Every month there will be a devlog, and every month there will be some progress, and eventually this game will be done. Eventually. Goodbye.